Okay, so if you don't know what a Nuzlocke is, here's the basic gist for you. After a Pokemon is fainted or knocked out, it is dead, and I can't use it anymore for the rest of the game. They'll be placed in the graveyard box, never to be seen again. You also have to nickname each Pokemon you catch, so you get more attached to them. You can also only catch one Pokemon from each route in the game, and it has to be the first encounter in the route. So, it is technically possible to lose a Nuzlocke, as we will only have a certain amount of Pokemon to use. Why Pokemon Sword? I like it, and I think it was way overhated on release, so I'm trying to shine some light on it here. Plus, if you don't know, the Galar region is based off of the UK. The characters, Pokemon and geographical locations are all inspired by real life things in Britain. So, just makes sense for me to play it and cover it. Now, Pokemon Sword is a bit different from the other games, as it has Pokemon in the overworld and the tall grass. So, to make things easier, I'm just going to avoid the Pokemon in the overworld completely and get my first encounter from the grass spawns. I mean, most of the spawns are still relatively similar, so it should be okay. I don't think it's unbalanced. It just saves me having to be eagle-eyed to see which one pops into existence every time I enter a new area. The wild area also muddles things a bit, but luckily it's divided by zones, so I'll get an encounter in each zone of the wild area. Also, I'm allowed to do raids, but I cannot use the candies or catch a Pokemon from it. It's just for the TMs you get at the end of the raids. Also, remember we're on Sword and not Shield, which means in this game we'll have different gym leaders to go against. Also, I won't be doing the DLCs. The Isle of Armor is focused on leveling up Kubfu and Urshifu, while the Crowd Tundra is focused on catching legendaries anyway. The leveling system for the trainers is a bit weird too. I'd either be underleveled or overleveled. It just makes sense for me to focus on the main game. Now, this isn't necessary for the rules, but I swap my battle to set mode, which means the prompt to automatically swap Pokemon when a trainer sends out a new one will not be there, just for some added difficulty in this challenge. Okay, admin aside, we can finally start our adventure. So, after mashing the A button, I get to decide my starter. I choose Grookey because Inteleon is pretty frail, and while Cinderace is powerful, it does lose to the second gym, and it's also a bit frail. Whereas Grookey can be pretty safe in the first two gyms, and Rillaboom is a pretty bulky, well-rounded Pokemon. We want to avoid glass cannons in this challenge if we can. His name is Monkey. We fight Hops, Wooloo and Subble pretty easily and get ourselves an extra 2 levels for Monkey. Next we go through the Slumbering Weald and fight the Zacian Illusion, which was a bit more creepy than I remembered. The illusion disappears after scaring us for a bit, and so Hop tells me off for not telling Mum that we're leaving, so I go back and our Mum gives us some small change of 30,000 Pokédollars. Now it's time for our first encounter. Right. First encounter time. I'm just gonna go in the grass. Okay, let's see what it is. It's a squirrel. I name it Cheeks. We meet Sonia, get the Pokédex, and Hop reminds me this game is set in England. Now it's time for the Route 2 encounter. We find a Rookidee this time, and I name it Wallace. The rest of Route 2 is a breeze with Wallace and Monkey cleaning up all the trainers, and also the next Hop battle. We get our flashy new Dynamax bracelet and head straight for the train station. Now, Dynamax is the Galar region's battle gimmick. We can only Dynamax in certain areas, basically just the gyms, and for 3 turns a Pokemon gets to be big, which means it has stronger HP stats and access to stronger variations of moves they already have equipped. After the 3 turns are up, however, the Pokemon will return to normal size and its normal stats. We say goodbye to our parents at Wedgehurst Station and then take the train straight to the wild area. I decided to get some of my encounters for now, and I'll come back later for the other ones, since getting like 8 Pokemon right at the start doesn't seem that fair to me. So, I'll get one in the Rolling Fields, one in East Lake Axwell, and one in the Dappled Grove. One was a Joltik that bug bites Monkey and frightens the life out of me. I named him Thor. One is a Bunnelby that I named Chops, and another one is an Oddish. After a handful of encounters, we reach Motostoke. I heal up, spend all of Mummy's cash on a haircut and new outfit. Yes, I'm spending all my money in very optimal ways in this challenge run. and then afterwards I head straight for the stadium to register as a trainer. My gym number is 937 and we head to the inn to meet Sonia again. She tells us about the ancient hero and afterwards we run into Team Yell, who we have to battle. They all mainly use dark types, so Thor sweeps all of them with Bug Bite. Afterwards Marnie tells them all off and then introduces herself. She will be our second rival next to Hop. And then afterwards we head back to the stadium for the opening ceremony. You know, I really forgot how long the beginning of this game is. We still haven't even gotten our first gym badge yet. Either way, the opening ceremony is introduced by Chairman Rose. He kicks off the events and then we can officially kick off our gym challenge. Here we also get a quick preview of all the gym leaders we'll be facing in the future. We meet Chairman Rose officially after the ceremony and he quickly reminds us that he's a business millionaire. After all that, we finally get to set off on our journey to the first gym. But first we need to get through Route 3, the Galar Mine, and Route 4. Yes, some routes are named in this generation. They'll count as separate encounters. Not before we have another rival battle with Hop though. Thor takes out the Wooloo by building up a Fury Cutter, and then I swap to Monkey for the Sobble, who takes it down pretty easily. For the Rookie D I had to swap around quite a bit because of some unlucky crits with its Peck, but otherwise we take him down with 0 casualties. Our Route 3 encounter is a Pancham that I named Noodle. We meet Sonia along the way, who continues telling us how rich Chairman Rose is. Route 3 is pretty easy. Wallace sweeps most of the trainers here. They're all pretty low leveled and don't have much coverage in their moves. So the Galar Mine doesn't actually have any grass inside it, so I'm going to have to walk in and go for the first Pokemon that spawns in front of me. That was the Timber, they're both Timber anyway. I named the Timber Maple. Monkey swept the trainers inside the Galar Mine quite a lot, so much in fact that he evolved into a Thwackey along the way. At the end of the Galar Mine we meet our final of our 3 total rivals. Bede challenges us to a battle. His first Pokemon is Solosis, who crits Thor for a lot of damage. Thor takes it out with Bug Bite but is left on low HP. His next Pokemon is Gothita. Fuck it. And yeah, we lose Thor. Wallace takes out Gothita. And his final Pokemon is a Hatenna, who does a lot of damage to Wallace before I switch in Monkey to take her out. Okay, our first rival battle against Bede and we already lose a Pokemon. The reason that happened was just stupid on my part. I was trying to spread XP evenly and I left Noodle and Maple in the party, who definitely would have got one shot by the psychic moves if I had swapped them in. I really should have boxed the 2 fighting types before the battle. I was just trying to get them XP for the run. Oh well. Thank you for sweeping some of the early game with us, Thor. Rest easy, soldier. You'll be missed. This was a wake-up call for me to not be so careless. Thor would have been great for the grass and mortar gyms that are coming up. We're out of the mine, so now it's time for our Route 4 encounter. It's a Wooloo that really doesn't want to get in the Pokeball. This thing stalls me out for minutes. Eventually, we catch it. Welcome to the team, Dolly. Wallace also evolves during our way for Route 4, and then we run into Milo at the end of Route 4, who introduces himself. We meet Sonia again, who takes us to the hill that was reposted everywhere on Twitter when the game was released. And now we can go on to the first gym. Okay, this is a weird spot to pause the video, I know, but I have to be a little bit honest here. Everything you've watched until this point was done months before what I'm saying now. I basically quit and I didn't want to do the Nuzlocke anymore. I lost one of my favourite Pokemon on my team and I was just getting very, very busy at the time. If you're curious, this video actually started production the day after I uploaded the Pokemon Day video back in February, so it's been nearly half a year now. However, I'm back, and after the many months I want to finish this adventure, and I'm not going to give up that easily. Thor was a message to not take this challenge lightly, and I'm no longer going to underestimate it. From here on out, I'm going to lock in and I will complete this challenge, one way or another at least. Now, as I was saying, it's time for our first gym battle. Well, before that we get to roll some Wooloo around. There's also a mandatory gym trainer that I forgot about, but Wallace took easy care of him. The Wooloo return to their pens and we can finally enter the pitch. We meet Milo into the middle of the pitch, and it's time for our first gym battle against Grass Gym Leader Milo. Now Milo only has 2 Pokemon here, and he leads with a Gossifleur that Wallace can take down pretty easily. But his final and ace Pokemon is a Dynamax Eldegoss. Wallace survives a max strike with 1 HP, but then he finishes off with his final move. That was dangerously close. And just like that, we finally got our first gym badge after 5 months. Our journey continues through Route 5, where we can finally get another encounter. But before that I get interrupted by 2 reporters with a double battle. But Monkey and Chops easily take them both down. The Route 5 encounter is an Esper I named Bagheera. I decide to fight through some of the trainers on Route 5. I skipped a lot of them in the Galar Mine and Route 4, so I decide to fight them here for some XP. Most of them are breeders and they have a lot of potions, but we don't have any close calls, so it's fine. When crossing the bridge we have to protect a bike from Team Yell. Maple sweeps them pretty easily and I send in Monkey to finish off as Sableye. When we get to the end of the bridge, Hop interrupts us for another rival fight. Maple bulks up in front of Wooloo to take it out with a low kick and then Corvisquire with Rock Slide. I send Monkey to finish off Drizzile because I'm too scared of it taking out Maple. After some more easy trainers we reach Holberry, the location of the water gym. It's here we run into Chairman Rose and meet Oleana. We find out Bede was endorsed by Rose, and Rose also promises to throw us a celebration if we win the gym battle. We have to chase Nessa back to the gym before we can enter it, but after we do that we can enter the puzzle room. After one of the trainer battles, Chops decides to evolve, which is pretty cool. We have that ground type coverage now, though it won't be that useful inside this gym. Monkey sweeps the entire room, and let this be a sharp reminder that I picked the grass type starter. And now we get to go on to our second gym battle against Water Gym Leader Nessa. Nessa leads with a Goldeen and I send in Monkey straight away. Monkey takes it down with a Razor Leaf. And then out comes Arrokuda, which also goes down in 1 Razor Leaf. And now it's time for our ace Pokemon, a Dynamax Dreadnought. I Dynamax Monkey in anticipation and use Max Overgrowth. Yeah, Dreadnought is a rock and mortar type, so Max Overgrowth is a quadruple effective move and one-shots Dreadnought. If I'd picked Score Bunny though, this would have been a very different experience for this fight. We have our second gym badge, and this will probably be the easiest one we'll ever get, just because we got lucky with our starter. With my brand new water badge, I head to the seafood place where Sonia is also waiting for us. Afterwards we get a TM and instructions to head for a different Galamine where the fire type gym leader is currently training. Now this Galamine has the same problem as before. There's no grass, so I'm just going to run into the first Pokemon I see spawn in. This is Shellos, I name Gloob. Near the entrance we run into Bede again. He took Thor from us last time, so I'm keen to do this one with no casualties. He leads with Solosis again and I choose Wallace. I use Home Calls to power up my Dark type move, but Psyshock does more damage than I thought it would. Solosis then goes down after one power trip. Next is Gothita, who lives power trip and nails Wallace with another Psyshock. Another power trip then takes down Gothita. Next is Hatena, but Wallace is 2 damage, so I swap in Monkey. Monkey and Hatena just exchange side beams and knockoffs back and forth, but eventually Hatena goes down. His last Pokemon is a Galarian Ponyta. However, our Pokemon are 2 damage, so I swap in Chops, but he gets confused by Confusion. Confusion damage adds up, so I swap in Bagheera. After a lot of collecting, Ponyta eventually does go down. Ugh, phew. That was a rough battle for our team, but we didn't lose anyone this time at least. I used Noodle to take down the trainers in the Galamine to level them up a little bit, and then we run into Team Yell again at the end of the tunnel, and then you have to multi-battle them with Hop. Both the trainers just seem to focus on Hop and attack his Pokemon, so Noodle just takes them all out. We finally get to Kabu and he just tells us to go to bed. Great. We get to Motorscope Outskirts and it's not labelled as a route, but it's named on the map and it's separated on the map, so I'm going to count it. The encounter here is a Pawnyard that I name Razor. I accidentally hit B and cancelled the nickname, so I just stopped at the Pokemon Centre in Motorstoke to change it. Well, we're back in Motorstoke now, and before I go to the inn, I thought I'd do a quick team update, as I've done some swapping and this is currently what I plan to use for the Fire Gem. Maple, Gloob and Chops I'm hoping will carry most of the fight, otherwise Kabu might burn away our entire team. Monkey is one of our strongest Pokemon, but we can't use it inside this gym because it's just too dangerous for him. But when we go inside the inn, we have our first rival battle against Marnie. She leads with a Krogunk, but Wallace takes it down in one hit. And then next is Morpeko. I swap in Chops to tank the electric move, and then Marnie tells us a bite expresses her feelings. It also causes us to flinch. Chops takes too much damage, so I swap in Maple to take it down. Last is Scraggy that Noodle takes down pretty easily. I honestly forgot this fight was here, so I was caught quite off guard by this and was very worried. The next morning Hop tells us that he's already beaten the gym and that Kabu is the man of fire. I'm sure this can only end well. In this gym mission our goal is to catch or defeat wild Pokemon in the grass. Now this is technically a new area and Reddit told me it was allowed, so I'm going to catch the first encounter in here and defeat the rest for 5 points. It's a Sizzlipede that I name Worm. The rest of the gym challenge is done by knocking out the wild Pokemon, and then we go on to the fire type gym leader Kabu. Now in the previous 2 gyms we've had some pretty solid answers to what the gym leaders can throw at us, but this time we don't really have that. And Kabu has a Gigantamax Pokemon instead of a Dynamax one. So the difference between a Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon is that a Gigantamax Pokemon changes form when it Dynamaxes. Only certain Pokemon will Gigantamax and gain new forms. These forms also unlock new attacks. Okay, it's enough stalling, let's do this. Fire-type gym leader Kabu leads with Ninetales and I lead with Chops. Ninetales burns us with Will-O-Wisp, but I use Mudshot to lower its accuracy and make it miss its next attack. Mudshot does eventually take it down, and next is Arcanine, which has Intimidate, which lowers our attack. Chops is beginning to take too much damage, so I swap in Gloob. Arcanine Will-O-Wisps us and bites us for a lot of damage, but we get a confusion with Water Pulse. I swap in Noodle to take it down, but Flame Wheel took Noodle to a slither and Burn nearly kills it. Last is Center Scorch, so I swap in Maple because it has Rock Slide, which Center Scorch is quadruple weak to. Center Scorches uses G-Max Centinferno to one-shot Maple, something that completely surprised me because I thought it could tank it. We're in a lot of trouble here. Everyone is really low HP and Wallace is burned, so I don't think he'll take down this beast. I decided to give myself a clean switch and one less turn of Center Scorch Gigantamax by sacrificing Noodle. Thanks, Noodle. This gives me an opening to Dynamax Wallace for a max airstream. We outlasted Center Scorch's Dynamax turns, which returns it to normal size, allowing us to finish the battle with a max airstream. Maple evolves at the end of the gym battle just to rub it in my face. Now we have the fire badge, but it wasn't without loss. I shouldn't have swapped so much and burned most of our team. If I had just sacrificed Noodle from the start, Maple wouldn't have died. But it was something unexpected and I think I adapted pretty well. We had to sacrifice Noodle to outlast the Dynamax turns, otherwise Center Scorch could have killed more of our team. With our badges we now gain access to Hammerlock and our journey will continue onwards. Goodbye Noodle and Maple. He evolved right at the end too. What a massive loss to the team. I suppose I had it coming. The first two gyms were way too much of a breeze. Before we leave for the wild area, Milo, Nessa and Kabu come see us off. It's afterwards though we can catch up on our wild area encounters. I know the next gym is a fighting one, so I decided to train up Bagheera a little bit and I'll get 5 wild area encounters here. I'll come back for the rest at another date. My encounter in the Watchtower ruins was a Grubbin I named Pinch. The West Lake Axwell was a Krabby I called Pinchy. The North Lake Mylock was a Snover I called Leon. Stony Wilderness was a Cottony that Worm accidentally kills with Flame Wheel. And Bridgefield was an Inkay I named Entire. We reach Hammerlock where we run into Rose, who tells us that wishing stars are very important and he wants to tell us more about them inside the stadium. We get an energy lesson from Rose, who again is very passionate about energy. I'm sure this won't come up again later. When outside we run into Leon again, who tells us that the gym leader of Hammerlock is Rayhan and that he was his rival and that we should meet him. On the way through I do get a new hat though. Rayhan shows us the way to the vault where we run into Sonia, who's looking at the tapestries on the wall about the history of Galar before we get to leave and head onwards to Route 6. Blocking the entrance are some Team Yell grunts whose Linoon caused a bit of trouble, but we managed to deal with them thanks to Razor's ability Defiant. NPCs love to use stat lowering moves, so we'll get a lot of value out of Razor's ability here. Defiant is when another Pokemon lowers Razor's stats, he'll get an attack boost for that. Hop vents a little bit about his loss to Bede to us and then runs ahead before Opal creeps up behind us. She's the fairy type gym leader. As amazing as Razor has been, I decide to stop focusing on leveling him up. He'll be near useless in the fighting type gym, so I decide to focus on Bagheera and Wallace to handle Bee's team. That being said, the worst thing proceeds to happen. I swap in Razor to deal with the Clefairy, who then uses Metronome. Metronome is a move that selects a random move for Clefairy to use. This move can be anything, and here's the move it got. Overheat? Yeah, that's a big loss for me. Razor would have been amazing in some of the future gym battles and rival fights. I was left speechless after this. Monkey and Galoob take care of the metronome spamming trainer, and then afterwards Bagheera decides to evolve into a Meowstic, which is some good news at least. I cannot believe I've lost 4 Pokemon already, 3 of which were in the last 10 minutes. Razor was a big one for me. I thought he would stick around, and Bisharp is one of my favourite Pokemon. I put Entire in his place as another answer to Bee's fighting types, and our Route 6 encounter is a Duskull I named Twilight. When making our way through, the Route Worm evolves into a Centiskorch, which is very good news. Our team is finally starting to evolve past their weak first form stages and gaining some bulk. Okay, so I noticed Inter had reached level 30, which makes him eligible for evolution. However, I missed the chance to because you need to do it while he's leveling up. I'm also not going to be able to record this because Inkay requires you to flip your console upside down while it levels up to evolve it. So I'll be using a rare candy I found, it wasn't from a raid before you ask, to get him to evolve because otherwise I won't be able to do it. Alright, I accidentally messed this up and I used multiple candies by accident, so to be fair I'm going to put Entire back into the box so he won't get over leveled for the rest of the route. That's my bad. I feel really bad about that. I nearly considered just permanently boxing him, but we'll see what happens. On our way through Route 6, a trainer's coughing self-destructs and gives me a heart attack, but otherwise we eventually reach Stow-Inside. Hop waits for us in the city and challenges us to a battle. He leads with Cramorant and I lead with Gloob. Gloob takes it down but is left on low HP. He follows with Silicobra, so I swap to Wallace, but he paralyses us with Glare. Wallace eventually takes him down, and then next is Drizzle, so I swap in Monkey. Monkey tanks a few attacks but then takes him down with some Razor Leafs. And then last is Toxel, so I swap in Bagheera to fake out and Psybeam to take it down. After the last gym's performance though, I decide to go back into Route 6 and fight some of the trainers I skipped out on for some XP, as well as getting some TMs from some of the raids, because I really do not want to have some big losses again. After a double battle against some trainers, Gloob finally evolves into a Gastrodon. Gastrodon. Am I saying that correctly? Gastrodon. That's really weird with my accent. When I return to the Pokemon Center, I swap Entire back into the team so we are ready to face the gym. The fighting type gym challenge is a weird pinball-like minigame, but it was quite fun and infinitely better than that catching one. I hated that. I have a confession here. I've actually never played with the set rule on, and the no switching between Pokemon rule is creating a lot more difficulty than I thought it would, because it's a lot harder to get some clean switches without taking damage. So part of my strategy is to bring an old friend. Okay, and now we're finally here. I'm really keen to get a good fight in here. I've analysed B's team and made a strategy for each one. I really hope we can do this. B leads with a Hitmontop and I lead with Bagheera. Bagheera fakes out and uses a couple Psybeams to take it down because Hitmontop tries to counter us and fails. Next is Pangoro, which is where my strategy needed to come in. Alright, listen, I've analysed the stats on the Pokemon damage calculator. None of my team would have survived more than 2 hits from this massive panda monster. This was the best possible outcome I could come up with here. I send in Worm for a clean switch who Will-O-Wisps the Pangoro and burns it. Burn reduces physical damage done by a Pokemon by half. So, Night Slash now does way less damage and I coil with Worm. I heal Worm and Pangoro uses Work Up to boost itself. I forget that Pangoro has Circle Throw, so he reminds me and uses it to force Wallace to come out. Wallace takes down Pangoro with Pluck and next is Surf Edged. I Pluck for big damage and then swap to Intier as I predicted Detect from Surf Edged. It actually uses Swords Dance instead, but Psycho Cut takes it down in one hit anyway. We're down to our last Pokemon now, Gigantamax Machamp. I Dynamax Inter and use Max Mindstorm, which takes 50% of it off. While Machamp hits us with a Max Strike, which only does about 30%, but it lowers our speed. Machamp is now faster than us, and I am terrified of getting crit here. It uses G-Max Chi-Strike, but thankfully it doesn't do a lot of damage, and another Max Mindstorm finishes it off. That was an intense battle, and I spent a lot of time on Bulbapedia and the Pokemon database, and whatever else to plan for it. I just want to say I planned for Worm to boost up and kill Pangoro and Surfetch, but I forgot it had Circle Throw, which forced us to switch. But we got lucky with it picking Wallace. If it had picked Bagheera, I would have been in a lot of trouble. Either way, we did it with no major casualties. Thank you, Cheeks. You were one of our earliest encounters, and your sacrifice will not be forgotten. When we leave the stadium, we meet Sonya and Yamper again, where we investigate some mysterious noises coming from above. It's Bede using a Copperage to destroy a mural. He won't let us stop him, so he challenges us to a battle. He leads with Duosion and I lead with Worm. After coiling and healing a bunch, I use Bug Bite for a one-hit KO. Worm then sweeps his entire team pretty easily. Listen, we just came from a gym, I'm not putting up with Bede right now. Rose says how disappointed he is in Bede for destroying a historical site, and then he removes him from the gym challenge and sends him back to Hammerlock. The mural collapses after they all leave and reveals a mysterious statue of 2 dog Pokemon, and the hero we saw in the inn is actually 2 people, with the sword and shield it was holding actually being Pokemon. I'm glossing over the story in summary here, but Galar's myth is inspired by a real-life mythos of King Arthur, especially around all the debates surrounding if he was a real person or actually multiple people's stories put together in one mythical figure. It's pretty interesting, and I recommend it if you're interested in British history. That being said, we move into the Glimwood Triangle, where Pinch evolves on our way through. Our encounter is a Morgrem I named Puck. After fighting some double battle trainers, Monkey evolves into Rillaboom, its final evolution stage, and we reach Balan Layer. In the Pokemon Center, I give Bagheera the TM for Psychic and afterwards go straight to the stadium. We run into Marnie on the way through, who just came from beating the gym and confirms that we are officially her rival now. And now it's time for the gym challenge, where Opal is actually just waiting for us. We'll be doing a quiz in the middle of a trainer battle, and depending on our answer we'll either get a stat boost or a stat drop. Now since I get all the questions right, I breeze through the trainers here. This is by far the easiest and quickest gym challenge I've ever done. On to the gym battle then, where Opal is already waiting for us in the middle. Let's start the battle. Opal leads with Galarian Weezing, and I lead with Bagheera. Weezing goes down after a Fake Out and Psychic, and next is Mawile, so I swap in Worm. Worm takes down Mawile, and next is Togekiss. I swap out Worm for Gloob, and it tanks an Ancient Power. We exchange moves back and forth, but thanks to Opal's quiz giving us stat boosts, we can take a Togekiss with an Ancient Power. And last is Alcremie. Alcremie may seem small here, but it has my favourite Gigantamax form. Gloob is 2 damage, so I swap in Monkey to tank a G-Max Finale. I hit it with Max Overgrowth, and G-Max Finale leaves us on a slither of HP. Thankfully, 1 more Max Overgrowth is all we need to finish it off. We did it, a gym fight with no losses. When we leave, we head back with Opal to Hammerlock and continue onwards to the right side of the city this time. We run into Bede on the way through, who's trying to get to the champion to let him back into the gym challenge. Opal loves the pink Bede is wearing, so she decides to let him come back to her gym, so he can get an endorsement again. Sonia and Leon investigate a mysterious earthquake coming from Hammerlock and decide to leave us out of it. I'm sure that's nothing. We run into Hop on the way through Route 7 and he challenges us to a battle. He leads with Trevenant and I lead with Worm. Worm takes out Trevenant in 1 hit with Flame Wheel. He swaps in Inteleon, so I swap in Monkey. Luckily he just uses Tearful Looker Bunch and we take it out with 1 drum beating. He swaps in Heatmore, so I change to Gloop, who takes it down with 1 Earth Power, and then next is Snorlax, so I swap in Worm again to Will-O-Wisp it and then swap back to Monkey to Screech it to counteract all the stockpiling it was doing. Snorlax goes down after a few drum beatings. Last is Boltund, who goes down after 1 drum beating as well. After that battle, Wallace decides to evolve into a Corviknight, a steel and flying type. I could have done with that in the last gym. But before I head properly into Route 7, I decide to round up some of my wild area encounters from before. In the Giant Sea is a Nuzleaf I call Goblin. Motorstoke Riverbank is a Carablast I name Useless. I can't even evolve this thing, I don't have any friends to trade with. Giant's Mirror is a Coughing I name Football, and Dusty Bowl is a Hatchrim I named. Okay, and our Route 7 encounter is a Corviknight I named Deirdre. 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 Yes, I know it's a girl name. Shut up! We move through onto Route 8 where our encounter is a Rhyhorn I named the Duke. Well, we've got a lot of Pokemon back to back. Thanks to Monkey, none of the rock and ground types from Route 8 really pose a threat to us. A Togedemaru scares me with iron barbs, but that's about it. We reach Sirchester, home of the Rock Gym, or the Ice Gym if you're on Pokemon Shield. We meet Hop inside the stadium and he tells us that he lost the battle against the Rock Gym leader. Now the gym mission this time is to navigate through the sand with a detector. If we step in a hole, we'll be put back at the start. Again, none of the trainers pose a threat thanks to Monkey and Gloob. I'll be honest, I failed a few times here because I do not have very steady hands and some of the pathways through are very thin. Now we go on to the gym battle against Goldie. Goldie's first Pokemon is a Barbaracle, and I lead with Monkey. Monkey one-shots Barbaracle because it's a water rock type and quad weak to grass. Next is Shuckle, who after a couple drum beatings I swap to Gloob to get him ready for the Pokemon after Shuckle. Gloob takes it down with Ancient Power, and next is Stonjourner. Now can anyone guess what real life British thing this thing is inspired by? Stonjourner sets up Stealth Rock, which will make switching much harder, but thankfully due to its abysmal special defense it goes down in 1 Earth Power. Now we're on to Goldie's last Pokemon, a Gigantamax Colossal. I Dynamax Gloob and use Max Quake and... yeah, Colossal is quad weak to ground thanks to its fire and rock typing. We had a lot of Pokemon to deal with the rock types, so I kinda knew this gym would be a bit of a breeze. That was probably easier than even Nessa. We now only have 2 more gym badges left to get. On the way out we meet Sonia again and she invites us to a restaurant named Bob's Your Uncle. Okay, Hop is also here and Sonia theorises more about the Darkest Day and the ancient heroes and their Pokemon. The ancient Pokemon were sent to sleep in the Slumbering Weald, where we encountered the illusions before. After the meal, Hop challenges us to a battle. Hop leads with Double and I lead with Worm. Double defense curls and I Will-O-Wisp it. Double spams defense curl, but just as we get it close, Hop heals it with a Hyper Potion. But after enough stalling, Double does finally go down. Next is Inteleon, so I swap in Glue to Storm Drain its water move. After 2 Earth Powers it goes down. Next is Snorlax, so I swap in Monkey and he crits Snorlax with Drum Beating for a massive chunk of damage. It dies to the hail and Hop sends out Pincurchin, so I swap Glue back in to one-shot it with Earth Power. Last up is Corviknight. It just uses Scary Face over and over, so Glue takes it out with 2 Muddy Waters thanks to the hail. After the battle, Puck decides to evolve into a Grimmsnarl, which is really good. He'll be useful for the next gym fight. And now we move on to Route 9. Before I get my encounter here, I decide to do the Team Yell fight that unlocks water traversal on our bike. Puck takes care of the dark types pretty well with Spirit Break. It's not much of a challenge. After making our way through the water, I decide to get the encounter in the grass near the end. My encounter is a Berserker I name Water Bottle. Yep, a water bottle. Maybe I shouldn't have asked my friends to name some of these guys. At the end of the route, we find out the entrance to Spikemuth is shut. That's until Marnie appears and says she'll show us the way through if we battle her first. Marnie leads with Liepard and I lead with Worm. Liepard torments us but Worm takes it out with 1 Bug Bite. Next is Toxicroak, so I swap to Bagheera. Bagheera uses Fake Out and Psychic, but we get Sucker Punched for a lot of damage. Next is Scrafty, so I swap to Wallace. Scrafty uses Crunch and Swagger on us, but Drillbeak eventually takes it down. Last is Morpeko, so I swap to Gloob and take it down with an Earth Power. Marnie says she'll get revenge on us in the champion match before showing us inside Spikemuth, home of the Dark-type gym. Fun fact, this is the first time we have a Dark-type gym ever, even though the Dark-type has existed since Gen 2. It's because every Dark-type trainer has either been an Elite Four member or Evil Team member before now. The Team Yell grunt reminds me we're in Britain before we start our gym challenge. The challenge is to basically fight a bunch of Team Yell grunts as they do their funny little dances and stuff. It is quite funny, and some of them I forgot about and made me laugh. When we get to the end, we find out what happened. Team Yell shut down the gym so only Marnie could progress in the gym challenge. They're such incredible stands. Anyway, we've made past all the grunts and now it's time to face the gym leader, who says we can't Dynamax our Pokemon in here, so it will be a traditional gym battle with no gimmicks. His name is Piers, the leader of Team Yell and the Dark type gym leader. He opens up by sending out Scrafty and I open with Puck. Scrafty smacks us with Fake Out, but one Spirit Break takes it down. Next is Obstagoon, who is Piers' strongest Pokemon, and I did not think he'd send it out this early. He tanks Spirit Break very well and counter hits us for a lot of damage, so I have to swap to Worm. Obstagoon Throat Chops us for another big chunk of damage, so I decide to swap to Monkey, who gets put into the red from another big counter. We are in a lot of trouble here. I pivot to Wallace, who finishes it off with a Drill Peck. Next is Malamar, who hits us with big damage thanks to Obstagoon's Obstruct, lowering our defense from before, and unfortunately Wallace does go down. I swap to Bagheera to Fake Out and Disarming Voice to finish off Malamar, and last is Skuntank. So I swap to Gloob, and after a very close call with Sucker Punch, Gloob takes it down. We get our 7th and penultimate gym badge. Marnie and Piers have some sibling banter and then we're let go from the gym. We're stuck in a cutscene outside with Leon when there's another explosion and Leon decides to run straight after it before we're given our control back. Yeah, losing Wallace was a big one. He's been with us for so long now, but I couldn't afford to just swap and start losing more than one Pokemon. Piers' Obstagoon had just messed with our stats too much, and this was unfortunately one of the only outcomes I could think of. If we didn't get our defense lowered, I think Wallace might have survived. What a shame. I replace him with Deirdre, who will continue as the Corviknight on our team in his honour. We make our way through the tunnel where Hop is waiting for us on the other side. He tells us apparently random Pokemon have started Dynamaxing in the wild, and Leon is the one stopping it. We run into Magnolia again, who says the chairman is obsessing over energy in the region. The group splits off and we're left to take on the final gym. But before that, I decide to cover the rest of my captures from the wild area, including the ones we can now access thanks to our water travel. So, Giant's Cap is a Dottler I named Nelly Day, the Lake of Outrage is a Boltund I named Sparks, Axe's Eye is a Roselia I named Tulip, and finally, in South Lake Mylock is a Machop I named David. And now we move on to the gym challenge, which this time is just 3 double battles, specialising in a weather condition each. The rain one goes down pretty easy as Gloob's Storm Drain absorbs all the water attacks and they can't really hurt us. The sun one gives me a scare with a Rock Tomb on Worm but otherwise goes down pretty easily. And then finally the hail one loses on the first turn because Puck and Worm both attack their quadruple weaknesses. And with that, it's time to challenge the gym leader, who also specialises in double battles. So Rayhan leads with Gigalith and Flygon, and I lead with Bagheera and Gloob. Gigalith spawns a Sandstorm with its ability Sandstream. I Fake Out with Bagheera on Flygon and Gloob takes it out in one hit with Ice Beam. However, Gigalith sets up Stealth Rock, meaning every switch we do will now take damage. Flygon is replaced with Sandaconda and Bagheera sets up Reflect. Gloob does big damage with Muddy Water to both of them. Gigalith Rock blasts Bagheera, making him drop to yellow health. I swap Bagheera for Deirdre and Gloob uses Muddy Water on Gigalith since Sandaconda dodges the attack. Sandaconda surprises me with a Fire Fang, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. Gloob then takes them both out with one Muddy Water. So Rayhan's last Pokemon is on its own, Gigantamax Duraludon. Gigantamax Duraludon isn't just any old skyscraper though, it's based off the Shard in London. Duraludon uses max Rockfall on Deirdre, but it doesn't do a lot of damage thanks to our steel typing. And then Gloob takes it out with just one max Quake. That was very surprising to me. When I was strategizing for this battle online, everyone, and I mean everyone I saw, said Rayhan was by far the hardest gym leader. I guess that's what happens when I have a Sea Slug as an answer to every single one of his Pokemon. He just couldn't get past the Gloob. And with that, we have all the badges and we can finally move on to the end of our journey. With all the badges, it means we can move to Wyndon, where home of the Champions Cup. Outside the gym we run into Sonia again, where her gran makes her an official professor. And then we take the train with Hop, which leads us to Route 10, our last route on this journey. The encounter here is a Rhydon I name Mint. The trainers in this route are much tougher, and unfortunately due to a massive miscalculation on my part, we lose Puck to an Earthquake from Flygon. I thought Grimnown could outspeed it, but it didn't, and ended up getting two-shot by it. Sorry we lost you at the finish line, Puck. You would have been great for Marnie's final battle. I'll replace Puck with Caroline, because she's one of the highest Pokemon we have, and if we get her to evolve she'll have the fairy typing that we've missed out on. The last three trainers on this route really do put up a fight with us, but once we defeat the last double battle trainers, Caroline actually evolves into a Hatterini. And with that, at the end of our rough journey in the snow, we reach our final destination, Wyndon. Now before heading into the stadium I do level up Caroline a little bit to get around the same level of our team, since otherwise she would just be fodder for us to lose in the battle. So I did it while not recording because it's pretty boring and it just takes up space on my end. So Puck was going to be my main sweeper for Marnie's team, but since we lost him I decided on another strategy with Deirdre. Marnie's got a lot of dark types and Corviknight learns the move Body Press and Iron Defense. With this wombo combo, I'm hoping to sweep her whole team. Body Press is a fighting type move that builds in power depending on how high your defense is. Corviknight already has a pretty good defense, but then if we boost it with Iron Defense, we'll be reaching massive amounts of power. Anyway, Hop meets us inside the stadium and tells us Bede couldn't make it, so we'll just be fighting Marnie and Hop since they are the final gym challengers in our way. And up first is our final fight against Marnie. And as always, she leads with Liepard. Marnie has the perfect counter to our strategy by Liepard tormenting us. Torment means we can't use the same move back to back, so I just Steel Wing for low damage and then Iron Defense again. Liepard snarls at us, which lowers our special attack, but it doesn't matter because Corviknight is a physical attacker. And then with 2 Iron Defense boosts, I decide to take out Liepard with Body Press. Marnie then sends out Morpeko, however we can't Body Press it due to Torment still being active. Morpeko sparks us for a guaranteed paralysis, but then Deirdre takes it down with a Body Press. Next is Scrafty, however Deirdre is way too damaged, so I switch in Monkey to deal with it. 2 Drum Beatings take it down, and next is Marnie's Toxic Croak, so I swap in Gloob. Toxic Croak hits us with Toxic, which puts a timer on Gloob being alive in this battle. Toxic isn't regular poison. Toxic builds in power the longer it is on the target. Earth Power takes it down in one hit, and then Marnie sends in her last Pokemon, a Gigantamax Grimmsnarl. I was stuck here for quite a while. If Gloob wasn't poisoned by Toxic I'd keep him in, but I think he'd die to the poison even if he survived Grimmsnarl's attack. I was staring at the team page for ages. My problem here is I don't think anyone on the team would survive tanking more than 2 hits from this Grimmsnarl. I decided to swap in Worm because he resists both Fairy and Dark type moves with his typing. And then we get crit by a Max Starfall. So I decide to stall out her Dynamax by protecting and then healing, and then on our last turn of Dynamax I use Max Flare for 1 hit KO. Now it wasn't the most honourable win. but we had an unlucky fight there and it meant we didn't lose anyone. I never said we couldn't use items in battle, I'm just trying to avoid it because it's a bit cheesy. Hop is up next and I decide to use a similar strategy. The only Pokemon that can really hurt Corviknight on his team is Pincurchin, so I'll watch out for that. This is our final fight against Hop, who has been by far the most persistent rival in the game. His team doesn't have one outstanding type, so I'm kinda worried on this one. The winner of this fight is given entry to the Champions Cup, so there's a lot riding on this. Hop leads with Double, and I lead with Dedre. Double body slams us for minimal damage, and Dedre begins to build up Iron Defense. Eventually we reach max defense, so we take out Double with a one-hit body press. Next is Pincurchin, however we're faster and thankfully it goes down in one hit as well. Next is Snorlax, who also goes down in one hit. His penultimate Pokemon is Corviknight. It hangs on by a feather and decides to use Scary Face instead of attacking us. Hop full restores for Corviknight, which makes it swagger us, making us confused. We get lucky though and break through confusion and body press Corviknight to finish it off. Last stop is Inteleon. Dynamaxing Body Press will turn it into a regular attacking move, so I decide to use Max Airstream instead. Inteleon uses Max Darkness for not a lot of damage on us, and then Dedre takes it out with one Max Airstream. And just like that, we crushed all of Hop's dreams. I'm honestly impressed. We didn't even have to swap a Pokemon in that fight. I thought Marnie would be a cakewalk and I'd struggle with Hop, but it was the complete opposite. Well, I suppose we didn't lose anyone at least. Leon is waiting for us back in the lobby and invites us to dinner as a congratulations on our battle. However, Leon never turns up to this meeting, and which causes Hop to stop mouthing off at his older brother. Piers appears and tells us Leon is at Rose Tower, and that he said he'd be late for our dinner. Marnie also joins us to help out, but as we go outside, Oleano tells us that the chairman and Leon cannot be interrupted at all costs. Right as she tells us that one of the staff has a key to Rose's tower and then we have to defeat him to get in there. We have to fight this one guy over and over again, however Marnie is in the back giving us cheers to boost our stats, making the fights pretty easy. Piers ends up doing a stage performance in the middle of a train station to cause a huge crowd to surge through, and we end up grabbing the key to Rose Tower in the commotion. Piers and Marnie say goodbye to us at the entrance and leave us as me and Hop enter the tower. We have a bunch of double battles with Hop against the Cosmos guards, but they all special in steel types, so Worm handles them all pretty easily. Once we reach the top, Oleano is the only thing blocking our way through to Leon, but she decides to challenge us with a battle to stop us. Her first Pokemon is a Frostlass and I send out Worm. Frostlass uses Double Team, however our Fire Lash from Worm connects and takes it out in one hit. Her next Pokemon is Milotic, so I swap in Monkey who takes it out with one drum beating. Up next is Salazzle, so I swap in Gloob. Salazzle poisons us before we take it out with one Earth Power. Her next Pokemon is Serena, so I swap in Dedre. Trop Kick lowered our attack so Drill Peck doesn't take it out. And then Serena nails us with Attract, making Dedre immobilized by love. Eventually we break through the immobilization and use Drill Peck, but Trop Kick has lowered our attack by a sizable amount. Dedre eventually takes it out and then Oleana sends in her final Pokemon, a Gigantamax Garboda. Max Steel Spike doesn't do a lot of damage thanks to Trop Kick, and Garboda nails us with a Max Rockfall, which also doesn't do a lot of damage. Weak Armor makes Garboda faster than us now, so it hits us again, but I use Max Knuckle to get our attack stats back up. Garboda uses one last Max Rockfall, however it still doesn't do a lot of damage. Both our Dynamax turns have run out, so we both return to normal size. Garboda uses Toxic Spikes and Dojo uses Iron Defense. The Sandstorm from Garboda's Rockfall is damaging it, but it won't damage us thanks to Dedre's Steel typing. Garboda just uses toxic spikes over and over and our defense boosted body press kills it. That drop kick messed up our attack, but thankfully body press counters it by going off our defense. That's why I use that move even though it's resisted by poison. With her defeat, Oleana grants us passage to interrupt Rose and Leon's meetings. Rose is suggesting to cancel tomorrow's battle due to his worries about the future of energy in Galar. Rose suggests the actions for the future are way more important than the present day, but Leon just takes us back to the hotel while making a jab at Rose. Rose then mutters to himself that he's going to change the course of history, which I'm sure it can only be a good thing. On the next day we get escorted to Wyndham Stadium to begin our finals match. Now in the Champions Cup we have to win our way through a tournament before we can challenge Leon. They're called the Elite Leaders, and that's right, this is what we have instead of an Elite Four. Now in the settings of the game and the story it's meant to be a random breakout tournament, but the trainers here are always predetermined. On Pokemon Sword we have to fight Nessa, Bee and Rayhan, all using their all-out teams. In our gym battles they were just using preset teams for gym challenges, but now we're up against their real deal and their strongest Pokemon. All the gym leaders are in the locker room as we get ready for the tournament. All of their dialogue is just them saying they're excited for the battle. Instead, Leon is the one giving an introduction to the finals match because Chairman Rose is nowhere to be found. Well, that's until Bee decides to walk into the middle of the pitch and begs to battle against us, proposing that if he loses he will retire from being a trainer completely. Bede blames us for everything that went wrong, and for whatever reason the staff let this battle go ahead even though he's basically just strolled right into the middle of a football pitch. This is our final rival battle in the game. Bede leads with Mawile and I lead with Worm. Fire Lash takes it out in one hit and out next is Gardevoir. Psychic does a lot of damage but we can take it out with 2 Fire Lashes. For Galarian Rapidash I swap to Dedre and after using a couple of Steel Wings it goes down. Last this is Gigantamax Hatterini. Max Steel Spike does a big chunk of damage, but Hatterini uses Max Flare, and Dedre hangs on by a slither of HP. One more Steel Spike takes it down. That was way too close for my liking. Now despite Bede's loss, the crowd decide to cheer him, which helps him decide to take over the Fairy Gym. Well anyway, despite the interruption, now we can begin the real finals. Up first is the Water Gym leader Nessa. We wiped the floor with her last time, let's see if she can do any better against us now. First is her Golisopod and I lead with Dedre. Dedre uses Drill Pick for a critical hit and immediately activates Golisopod's ability to automatically switch out. Barraskewda is up next and it hits us for a chunk of liquidation, but we manage to take it out with 1 Drill Peck. Golisopod is back and Nessa full restores it before I Drill Peck it again and it emergency exits again. Dedre is 2 damage so I swap in Monkey. Drum Beating takes it out in 1 hit. Golisopod is back for a 3rd time and First Impression hits us hard, but Drum Beating barely finishes it off. Next is Pelipper who summons a Rain with Drizzle. Monkey is too hurt so I swap to Gloob. Pelipper spams Roost and activates our Storm Drain ability with Water Pulse. The rain eventually stops and Nessa sent in her last Pokemon, Gigantamax Dreadnought. Dreadnought uses Max Darkness for a little bit of damage, but then our Max Quake hits much harder and takes it down in 1 hit, just like last time. Our first leader is defeated. Now it's time for the second leader, Fighting type Gym leader, Bee. Bee promises her attacks will shake our soul and the battle begins. B leads with Hawlucha and I lead with Bagheera. Fake Out and Psychic leave it on a Slither, but Hawlucha uses Bounce, making itself invincible for one turn. During the empty turn, I decide to set up a Reflect, but then Bounce paralyzes us, but thankfully Disarming Voice finishes it off. Next is Surfetched, who hangs on for a Slither from Psychic, so I swap to Deirdre and finish it off with a Drill Peck. Afterwards is Phalanx, who takes us down to half with a Close Combat and Rock Tomb. Deirdre finishes her off. Next up is Grapple, so I swap to Gloob, who takes it down with 2 Earth Powers. Last is a Gigantamax Machamp. G-Max Chi-Strike doesn't hit that hard, but neither does our Max Geyser. After we heal Gloob, our next max move takes Machamp out thanks to the rain reset with Geyser. And now we just have one more trainer in our way. In the locker room before the battle, Marnie and Piers are waiting for us. She scolds her brother for losing to Rayhan because it will make people think that she's weak because they're related. But Marnie says she'll be cheering for us to win instead of Rayhan. Rayhan is the only one in our way, but this time he'll be using a single battle format rather than the double one in his gym. Rayhan leads with a Torkoal and I lead with Bagheera. Torkoal's Drought summons a Sunny Day, and Psychic doesn't do too much damage, but Torkoal only yawns at us, so we get another Psychic which leaves it on a Slither. Torkoal uses Solar Beam, which instantly charges thanks to the Sunny Day it set up before. Rayhan uses a full restore on Torkoal and Bagheera falls asleep. Torkoal keeps using Solar Beam, but it doesn't do too much damage, and the sunlight eventually fades, forcing Solar Beam to take 2 turns instead of 1. I full restore Bagheera to wake him up and heal him, as Torkoal's now charging from its Solar Beam. Our next Psychic drops a special defense, so our following one finally takes it down. Next is Flygon, so I swap to Gloob. Flygon sets up a Sandstorm with its free turn, and then uses Earthquake for a chunk of damage, but Ice Beam takes it down in 1 hit. Next up is Goodra, who sets up Rain Dance, and luckily Gloob gets a freeze with Ice Beam. A few more Ice Beams then take it down. Next is Turtonator, who goes down from 1 Earth Power before it can even move. The rain stops as Rayhan sends in his last Pokemon, Gigantamax Duraludon. Duraludon uses Max Knuckle for minimal damage, and then Gloob uses Max Quake to take it down in 1 hit. It seems Rayhan still can't handle our Gloob, and with that, all the elite leaders are defeated, and we only have 1 trainer on our way. Hop greets us in the locker room and admits he doesn't know who to cheer for, his older brother or his best rival. We walk onto the pitch for our final battle where Leon is waiting for us. Well, that's until Rose suddenly appears on a big screen to announce he's starting the apocalypse. He tried to contain the energy, but it's too much to contain, and now Dynamax energy is blasting through all of Galar. Leon says he'll go fix this mess, but us and Hop work out that the only way to stop the Darkest Day is to find the Sword and Shield Pokemon that stopped it 3,000 years ago. So we return to the Slumbering Wheel to find them. After this whole journey, we're back to where it all began. We see the Sword and Shield Pokemon again, but they disappear into the fog. Where we run into Sonia and she tells us the names of the Sword and Shield Pokemon, Zacian and Zamazenta. We find the rusted shield and sword on the ground and take it with us and head back to Hammerlock, where the surge of energy is splurting out. Oleana is waiting for us outside the plant and begs us to go down there to stop Rose. Apparently he summoned a Pokemon called Eternatus, and if it's left alone it will cause all the Pokemon in Galar to Dynamax all at once. Rose is downstairs inside the plant and explains he wants Galar to have unlimited energy. The Wish Jars woke Eternatus and Rose won't let her stop him. And then the most dramatic tonal shift of music starts playing as Rose challenges us to a battle. Rose's first Pokemon is a Scavalier, and my first one is Worm. I coil with Worm as this Cavalier uses Sword Stance. After the second time it uses Sword Stance, I decide to use Fire Lash to take it out because Sword Stance is a big boosting move and I do not want to take that much damage. Its next Pokemon is Klinklang. Klinklang hits us with Wild Charge as I continue coiling. I decide to burn the Klinklang to further reduce the damage it's doing to us so it can coil some more. After 4 boosts, I decide it's time to unleash Worm's Rampage. Klinklang goes down in 1 hit, and next is Berserker, which also goes down by 1 Fire Lash. Next is Ferrothorn, who goes down as well, but its Iron Barbs hurt us a lot. And now we're down to Rosa's final Pokemon, a Gigantamax Copperajah. Yeah, Worm just incinerated his whole team. Rose takes his defeat surprisingly well and tells us Leon is currently battling Eternatus above to try and capture it and stop its energy outburst. So we decide to head up there and help him. We run into Leon trying to capture Eternatus right as he's throwing the Pokeball to catch it. Yeah, it didn't really work so well, and now Eternatus is angry at us. Eternatus is probably one of the most alien Pokemon we've ever gotten. There's a lot of speculation around this thing being from outer space. I mean, you can even hear it in its theme song. Eternatus uses Flamethrower for not a lot of damage, but it does burn us. Earth Power knocks off half of its HP. Eternatus uses Flamethrower again, and Earth Power takes it down in a second hit. Eternatus really didn't like getting knocked out by Gloob, so it kinda causes the end of the world. Eternatus has a Turnamaxed, and now we have to face off with a raid battle against it. Except none of our Pokemon can even move here due to Eternatus' massive amount of energy. So instead we decide to bring out the Rusted Shield and Sword and point it towards Eternatus. We're basically begging for something to happen here. We can now move with our Pokemon and help them take down Eternatus in a one big raid battle with the 2 legendary dogs. I do really like these legendary dogs because they aren't some like god, deity or dimension eating parasite. They're old warriors that made themselves into legends through helping Galar in the past. Now on the Nuzlocke side of things, this fight really isn't much of a challenge. But as the tornado of rubble surrounds us and the memories of our journey are showing in the background there, I can't help but think about all the Pokemon that gave their lives so we could reach here and now. With one last Shield Bash, Eternatus is defeated and we can finally catch it. We stopped the darkest day and saved all of Galar. So I put Eternatus in the graveyard box to kill it! 3 days later we're found in Wyndon's hotel again and find out Chairman Rose has turned himself in to the police. Hop is here to also tell us that Leon has organised our champion battle for today, so we head towards the stadium. And now we are finally actually here. The final match of our journey. I told myself if I lost here, I wouldn't try again because I can't be bothered to train up another team, and it just makes things that much more dramatic. Whether I like it or not, we'll either come out of this battle a winner of the Nuzlocke or a loser right at the end. The level jump is also quite significant here, so I get a little bit of levels before the battle. Leon's lowest is level 62 and my highest is 58, so I level them up a little bit. We're still under leveled by his team by the end of it, but it's just a little bit to help us out. New gen champions have a reputation for being easy, but Leon is definitely not included with them. He has a pretty strong and good team, and I've been spent a lot of time trying to figure out which members of our team can take them on. Alright, here's our team right before the fight. Let's see if we can win the Pokemon Sword Nuzlocke. Here we go. Leon's first Pokemon is Aegislash and mine is Worm. Worm uses Fire Lash and Aegislash uses Shadow Ball. Aegislash stalls us out with King Shield, but Fire Lash then takes it out. Seismitoad is up next, so I swap in Monkey, who takes it out with just one drum beating. And then next up is Cinderace, the starter neither me or Hulk chose. I swap in Gloop, who tanks a Pyro Ball, but then Cinderace uses Acrobatics for big damage. But a critical Earth Power takes it down in one hit. Next up is Haxorus, so I switch in Caroline to absorb the outrage. Dragon moves don't affect our fairy types. Iron Tail brings us low, but Caroline takes it out with just one Dazzling Gleam. Next up is Dragapult, the pseudo-legendary of the Galar region. He takes out Caroline with just one Shadow Ball. I swap in Gloop, who does some damage with Ice Beam, but then eventually goes down as well. I swap in Monkey, who tanks a Flamethrower, but then finishes Dragapult off with a Knockoff. And now we're down to Leon's last Pokemon, Gigantamax Charizard. G-Max Wildfire annihilates Monkey and takes it out. So I swap in Worm and Dynamax it and use Max Guard. I'm trying to stall out the Dynamax turns as much as possible. Next turn, Worm hangs on from a Max Rockfall and fires off a Max Darkness for a little bit of damage. Charizard returns to its normal size but takes out Worm with just one Ancient Power. However, we've created a Sandstorm which is chipping away at Charizard's HP. I swap in Bagheera and use Fake Out to stall out some more Sandstorm chip damage on it. But then Charizard nails us with a Fire Blast before Bagheera hits him hard with Psychic. Charizard is low, so Leon uses a Full Restore, but Bagheera hits it with another Psychic. Bagheera avoids its KO by dodging Fire Blast and finishing Charizard off with another Psychic. We did it. We actually did it. All of the people we met along the way are in the crowd cheering us on. Bagheera and Deirdre may be the only ones left standing, but the whole team put in a good effort to take down this champion. And with that, my first ever Nuzlocke is completed. I was not expecting the difficulty that would come with this, especially with the, Pokemon Sword is known as a bit of an easier game compared to the older ones at least. Especially when it comes to not being able to switch, and losing your strong team members permanently really tested my knowledge of this game. I had an absolute blast. I stared at the party screen for minutes, figuring out how to come up with a strategy that wouldn't result in a Pokemon being fainted. Normally you just, throw them out, let them be fate, and swap to next. This was a very different experience, and one that put me on my toes. I definitely recommend it to anyone looking for a bigger challenge in their Pokemon games. It is so much more thrilling than I thought it would. It really clenches your toes as you're praying for a not critical hit, or you're relying on a low roll to survive. It is incredible. Now, if you're wondering, our total death count was 7 before the champion, and then 11 after the champion. And lastly, with the credits rolling again, I want to show my appreciation for Pokemon Sword. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. It has its issues, and I certainly felt them when replaying this game, but I still absolutely love it to pieces. Now, when the fandom cycles round to eventually loving Sword and Shield and calling it underrated, I'll be right along with the crowds with them.